the guy who'd founded Foot Asylum, taking pictures of everything. How can a successful person, who's been and done it, to then want to go and take advantage of a teenager? Because obviously they're just taking pictures to copy.
Who are some of the most famous people to have worn your brand?
NBA and NFL stars wearing our stuff. Jake Paul, and ended up pulling it down. We had like 50 comments of saying this is a really bad move. Jamie Foxx didn't really have much of an impact either.
That just tells you about influencer marketing today.
Yeah, it's finished.
What's the reason for the downfall of ASOS?
They were trying to compete with fast fashion and they lost their USP. Why do you want to go on ASOS to buy a cheap £6 white t-shirt? You can get it from Shein, Boohoo or anywhere.
How much of your business is over in the States?
It's 50%.
Wow.
I bought a nice car. There was times I actually parked it so far away from the office so people didn't see me pull up in it. I don't know if that should be the way you feel.
Do you need to move to London to be a success in fashion? You guys are unbelievable. Already, tens of thousands of you have listened to and watched the podcast. Not for 1 minute did I think that in the first few months of release, we would already be at this point. We were even in the top 10 charts after the first month. The lineup of guests I have for you in the following months is amazing. Some of them have never even done public interviews or podcasts before, but trust me, you will definitely have heard of their brands and names. If you want to know as soon as they're released, please make sure you have subscribed and followed me, Ben Gallagher, on your favourite social media platform. That's BenGallaga. This gets more eyeballs on our episodes, which gives us more traction to get even more amazing guests. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this one. Choosing electrolytes can be overwhelming. There are so many different ones on the market, so it is essential that you pick the right ones for you. Hugh Mantra understand this, so they've put together this nifty little trial pack. For just £15, you will get 8 sachets beautifully packaged in this box, which include 2 of each flavour: berry pomegranate, elderberry, Himalayan lime, and my favourite, lychee. And you will also get a free frosted bottle too. Click the link down below and start your electrolyte journey with Hugh Mantra now. This is something you said. I don't read books, I don't get up at 5 a.m, and I don't network with anyone. Don't listen to the bullshit everybody is feeding you these days. So what does a day in the life of Jordan look like?
Probably, at the minute, probably get up at 8 a.m. Again, my day's evolved from starting to now. First thing, I start at 9. I don't start too early unless I absolutely have to, and I've got into the habit of not finishing too late. But a lot of my day now is about catching up with people, giving my thoughts on things, signing things off, putting together kind of things for people to do. So, for example, a good example would be yesterday, where we've launched our Black Friday early. Obviously, we had an evening's worth of results, and there's things that need to be changed. So my thing on a Tuesday morning was to get everyone together and say, tell them, look, we need to provide this information, and then we can kind of decide action points. And I'll say, this is what we need to do, and this is what we need to go and implement. So I've gone from being very, very executional to now trying to take myself out a little bit and, more kind of, what's the word, move the ship a little bit.
When did you change from being more executional to more of a leader and more of a manager?
It's been a very slow kind of progression, and it's been very difficult because, for example, my first employee wasn't until 2021. So Move started in 2018. So it's 3 years of me working on my own in my bedroom. And it was doing everything from, the marketing, designing the products, liaising with the factories, having to make sure the product gets in on time, doing the email marketing, designing on Illustrator, like the emails. So the first couple of employees was difficult because without me packing my day from 9 in the morning, and at that time I was working till 10 o'clock at night because I had to, there was so much workload, it was difficult to then be able to take time away from that to then kind of spend time with an employee to get them to a point where they can go off and do things on their own. Because it's even things like, showing people the process or where things are saved, or, handing things over that takes time, which I didn't have the time for. So I would say for the first year or 18 months, it was really tricky because having to hand things over was difficult. But it's just over time, for example, I brought in the first employees as a merchandiser and a designer because I felt that they were the two jobs that were taking up a lot of time, or I didn't have the skill set. So back in 2021, we all sold out products. So we were having, restocks and having massive peaks, and it was really tailing off. And I just couldn't get the product in on time, especially when I was designing, and it's just taken forever. So a merchandiser came in and got that right, and would make sure we always had product in. And the other thing, design was just taking forever. So it was just kind of a slow process. So I thought the numbers in terms of ordering, that was off my hands. Then I didn't have to design, but then it was just about coaching the designer of what I wanted and then signing things off. So it just took away a lot of time. And then with that spare time, I could then go, well, what's next? Do I need another employee? Do I need to put this in place? It's still now, there is still times where I feel like it needs to be better, because now I've found that where we've gone from maybe 2 or 3 employees to 20, some of that process still hasn't changed, whereas I signed off everything 3 years ago. Whereas now people come to me and say, is this okay? Whereas I want them to go and do it without asking. Or they come to me quite siloed and they go, is it all right to do X? But I don't have all the information to make the right decision, because maybe we need some, the information from the head of ecom or, the head of performance, and just my opinion on my own without the information could be the wrong decision. Or that decision is then not spread to the other team members, and then people go, why the hell have you done that? But I go based on one person's opinion. So I've said now, no one comes to me for a sign-off unless you've spoken to the stakeholders in the team that are directly impacted by it. And then if there is a final sign-off with something important, you need to come with me with all the information so I can make a considered decision. Because it just got to a point where, people would say at 5:20, can I quickly call you? We need an urgent sign-off. A great example is product. It's like Chinese New Year's coming up, so everything has to ship before like January the 20th, for example, even for product that's not launching until May, because they take off a month, plus they're very slow when they come back. So the factory have said if they need an order by tomorrow, or we're going to miss the shipping deadline. And they say, are you okay with ordering this? And it's like, in my head I am, but we need the FD to run his numbers and go, do we have the cash for it? Does it make sense? And sometimes it's very tricky.
So you need as much information as possible before you make any decision, because it could upset certain people in the company. People might just be trying to get something signed off to make, not themselves look good, but just get their job done without understanding other people impacted. Definitely. I get that.
And I think the other thing is when I make the final decision, it kind of relieves them of the pressure, because it's ultimately my fault if it goes wrong. So that's something as well. So it's tricky, but we're definitely making steps to improve.
Good. What was it like growing up in a small town like Cambridgeshire?
It was good to grow up in as a kid, because it's very quiet. It was a nice neighbourhood. But it was. I lived in a small town called St Ives with 10,000 people. So
I've heard of that before.
Maybe it's not the one in Cornwall. Everyone gets mistaken, but it's in Cambridgeshire.
Not heard of it then.
Right, So it's like there's one secondary school. Everyone knows everyone. If you go down to the local pub or something, you kind of know everyone in there. So, and most people don't really get out of that town. So deciding you want to start a brand came with a lot of people taking the mickey and saying, what the hell are you doing? So I think that was tricky. There's a lot of opinions in a small kind of space.
It's easy to listen to those as well.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you block out that noise?
I would say I didn't block it out. I used it as fuel. So I will never forget, there was one occasion I was, I think, 19. At this time I had next to no money because I was trying to make a business. I didn't have a job apart from this clothing brand, and I'd gone out in town with some of my friends. I had like some really beaten up Nike trainers on, and like some guy shouted at me from like back of the queue and saying about the business and saying it was crap, and then saying like nice trainers, mate, like taking the mick. So I used that as a kind of a fuel to say one day I'm going to show you that you were wrong, and kind of be a bit like, it's a bit of an up yours at you. So I've used that the whole way through as fuel to show people, look what I've done.
There's a quote that a lot of people say where you're either running towards something or you're running away from something. What do you think you were doing?
A bit of both, I think, because I was running towards success and what I thought was success, but I was running away from the small town I was in. So I think moving to London, I'm running away, but I'm getting closer towards where I want to be.
Before you started the brand that people will know, Mauvais, you had a brand called Muscle Monkey.
Yeah.
What is Muscle Monkey, or what was Muscle Monkey, and what was the inspiration behind starting that one?
Yeah, so I was 17. I at the time I was very into the gym. I was inspired by, I guess, some of the brands that were just starting to grow at the time.
Yeah, Gymshark,
Yeah.
Gym King.
Gym King probably came at a similar time, but there were so many brands that in the Gymshark era that were kind of having like
go.
muscle, and then they were adding a monkey or another animal. It's just stupid things,
Yeah.
So it was my first taste into business, and I was printing on blank T-shirts. I didn't know where factories was, and it was the very start of Instagram as well. So it was a time where the engagement was good. I was able to get sales organically. Ended up getting that brand onto ASOS as well. So that was at the time was then my main revenue source. I was working in my parents' house in my bedroom, kind of shipping off to ASOS warehouse and things like that. But I always say to everyone, I'm a little bit embarrassed by the brand, but then I think, well, actually, it equips me with a lot of things that then when I started Mauvais, hit the ground running.
Yeah, I don't think you should be embarrassed by it. Why'd you say that?
I just think the name is very cringy. It's a bit childish, but it's...
Yeah, but you were a child when you made it. You were 17.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all the mistakes I made on a really tiny scale.
Yeah.
When the brand was running, the online store was doing like £1,000 a month. But at the time, I thought I was killing it.
Yeah.
I remember, I think in the first year, we done £8,000 in the whole year.
Yeah.
But there was something in me that thought, well, I've sold something, so it's a bit of a goer. So I'm going to be able to go and achieve something.
Yeah.
I was completely deluded, and I really thought £1,000 was a lot of money.
It gave you evidence that you could make something successful. Because at 17, making £1,000 a month off your own creation.
Yeah.
Most 17-year-olds would only dream of doing that.
Yeah.
But it shows how much you held yourself to a high standard, because like now you're embarrassed by it. I genuinely don't think you should be at all. You should be proud of it, and you should look back at it and be like, yeah, that was a kid who really knew what he was going to do one day. Yeah,
definitely. It was something in me, just from a child. Like my mum was in marketing, and she was in marketing right at the start of the kind of .com boom.
Nice.
So I grew up hearing about online and e-commerce, and as a child my mum would buy me How to Get Rich on eBay, HTML, coding books, everything, or best design websites. So it was something in me from kind of a child. And then as I started to get into my teenage years, I saw brands on Facebook, for example, blowing up with t-shirt brands. One is like Hype.
Yes.
I remember they had a t-shirt with Einstein on with a kind of big earring.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that was so cool, and I wanted to do something similar. And then I would look at the founders and I'd go, oh, look at the amount of boxes they've got in their warehouse or something. I want a bit of that.
The only thing I remember about Hype, because I think it was just before my time, is the Galaxy print.
Yeah.
The Galaxy print was on backpacks, and it was on vest t-shirts as well. But that's all I remember. And then I just remember never seeing them again.
They done really, really well. And then because they were doing all those sublimated prints where it was quite childlike, they went into kids. Yeah. And their kids done really well, but they destroyed their menswear business. Yeah. So I don't know if they're still going now.
So after Muscle Monkey, you created your brand Mauvais. Yeah. What was the inspiration behind starting Mauvais? To
be honest, it was a bit of bad luck, really. There were ASOS at the time was our biggest revenue source. So like for example, 2017, I think we'd done like 250 grand in the whole year. So it was still very small, but
with Muscle Monkey.
With Muscle Monkey,
that's amazing.
But 200 grand was ASOS.
Yeah.
So without ASOS, we would have gone out of business. Because I was also using ASOS's orders to fund stock. I'd set up finance facilities with Lloyds Bank, like to get invoice factoring and purchase order finance, because I didn't have the cash to make the orders. I'd take the invoice to a finance company. They would give me the cash to pay my suppliers.
Like trade finance?
Yeah, trade finance. So then what I'd do is if ASOS ordered 200 units, I'd add on 50 for my website. So it allowed things to, the kind of motions to keep going.
Yeah.
Whereas if you pull that away, I'd have had no cash to order new stock. So there was a bit of an issue with the brand name. I won't go into it. But buyers were amazing at the time, and it was the glory years of ASOS where they're really kind of championing young businesses.
Yes, bedroom businesses.
Yeah. And they said, look, we can't carry on buying the brand, but we'll help you set up a new business or new brand.
No way.
So
ASOS effectively helped you set up Mauvais?
Yeah. So I went to them with like 20 brand names, and they said straight away, Mauvais is a brand we really love. And then we use it as a time to go from like gym clothing to doing something different. And at the time, there was a real gap in the market for kind of a smarter party going out clothing.
Yeah.
Because especially in 2018, it was all about the brands with the big logos on the side, and it was a little bit chavvy.
Yeah.
Or brands that just slapped the logo in the front, and everyone was fed up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this gap in the market for a new brand that was doing something a bit different. So we had like the check trousers with a bit of stretch in.
Yeah.
And I think we were one of the first brands on ASOS to ever do a check trouser that was like slim and with a bit of stretch, and it wasn't just a suit pant.
Yeah.
Because like when you filtered it, we were like one of two. Yeah. So straight away we captured like that demand.
Because was it that picture that went viral of the four lads outside the pub?
Yeah.
And they were and there's a tweet, isn't there, that says like, your fella wears these pants, and then you retweeted it being like, sorry.
Yeah, my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I really think that we were at the start of that, and we were, for example, we went into Foot Asylum, and Foot Asylum obviously is a kind of a sportswear business, but at the time they were also buying bedroom brands and doing more like normal clothing.
Yeah.
And we sold our check trouser into that store, and we were like one of the best sellers in all of their stores. So we really captured things, and we really got it right at the very start.
Was there any other brands that happened to that ASOS were helping? So because they would have helped thousands or at least hundreds. Are there any that really prospered, or are you like the only one to come out of it who have really, really took what they gave you and ran with it?
I think I'm probably the only brand they've ever helped build from the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is obviously amazing.
Unbelievable.
There's businesses that were doing all right already, and then they excelled.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's ever been a brand where they didn't already have kind of like the growth already, because ASOS would still bring in brands that were popping off on Instagram, and that's how they found them and brought them through. But for a brand to go from nothing, go on to ASOS and then do well, I think we're probably the only ones.
You were non-existent before.
Non-existent. Even things like on ASOS, there's a drop down that says new drops or new brands, and you'd have all the big brands. You'd have Nike, like Fred Perry or Tommy Hilfiger, and then somehow they managed to get us on there, and it's like unheard of what they've done. Mm-hmm. So I owe a lot to ASOS in terms of the platform they gave me.
Are you still on ASOS now?
No, we pulled off there during COVID.
How come?
It was a decision that I made during COVID that we weren't going to work with retailers anymore. Partly because during COVID, there was a period of time for a couple of weeks where everyone was really scared about what was going to happen. So retailers like ASOS were cancelling orders and, or saying, we're going to delay it, or we need a discount. And at the time, I still couldn't afford for someone to cancel an order. So I said I can no longer be in the hands of the retailers, because if they cancel on me, I could be out of business. So I wanted to bring it back into my hands where I'm in my own, I'm the I've got my own destiny in my hands.
Yeah, you're in control of your destiny, yeah?
In control. So it was about growing online through our own website. Pair that with, bad experiences with Foot Asylum as well. I thought enough's enough.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. A lot of people say when your brand goes into Foot Asylum, you're in trouble. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, if you play things incorrectly. So the reason why we stopped working with Foot Asylum is they bought our brand, done super well, but what they were doing is getting the information to then create their own brands, and they make their extra margin. So they ended up making a brand that was very similar to us, had the same logo, and their whole first collection was a carbon copy of what we'd done.
So Foot Asylum basically copied your brand?
Ripped it off.
Yeah.
And then what they done is put our product in between their product in store, so they were able to ride off the wave that we were creating. And then it got to a point where they didn't need us anymore because they were just making their own products. So
how did that make you feel?
Bad, and I wanted to take them to court and things like that, but again, at the time I couldn't afford the fees that you have to pay a lawyer. So I just used it as fuel to carry on growing and showing people I didn't need someone like Foot Asylum. And the thing is as well with going on to your point about you're in trouble, is when you're in Foot Asylum, they can wreck your brand. They say we need you to design this or design that, and before you know it, the DNA that's within your brand is different. And you have a huge high, and then you come down just as fast. Whereas the way we're growing now is a lot more sustainable, and we're not in every shop up and down the country, but it means that in 2 years' time, you're not going to look at the brand and go, that's really corny.
It's the Amazon strategy of getting people on, seeing what their bestseller is, and then just copying it, ripping it off, putting it for cheaper, but getting better margin.
Absolutely.
I didn't realise that that's what Foot Asylum did. That's
yeah,
unfair, would you say?
It's unfair, particularly I remember, it's funny actually, I was in your hometown in Liverpool. I stayed there the night before I went to their office in I think it's in Rochdale, and someone actually chucked a brick through my back window in my car because stupidly, not knowing Liverpool, I left 2 suitcases full of samples in the car.
No.
Yeah, and
well, I'm sorry you had that experience in Liverpool, because it's do you know what? Although it gets a bad rap for people breaking into places and people stealing things, it's actually not bad for it at all. But obviously, you've had a different experience.
You know what? It's a lovely city, and I've been there lots of times. But maybe I shouldn't park in dark car parks with no CCTV with bricks on the floor. So.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so I remember waking up ready to drive to the meeting. My back window was smashed in and the suitcase is gone. And I'd spent months and months and months preparing these samples. It was for the summer season, and they disappeared. So I remember ringing my dad in tears saying, all my work's gone, because obviously it was only one style of each product. So without that sample, I'd kind of have to start again or ask the factories to make the stuff for me again. But luckily, then I walked around to the front of the car and it had a note on it saying, please check with the hotel. And I went into the hotel, and the security guard apparently had seen these guys launch a brick in my window and had kind of shooed them away and then took my suitcases into the hotel.
Oh, that's nice of them, isn't it?
Yeah, so that was, averted a
I bet he was a Scouser as well, so you got the best and worst of Scousers there,
exactly. So there are some good people in Liverpool. But I went to the meeting, and at the time the guy who'd founded Foot Asylum, he also was one of the founders of JD Sports.
Yeah,
was in the meeting, was going, wow, this is amazing, taking pictures of everything. And I think when I look back on it now, I think how can a successful person, who's been and done it, who's probably achieved enough in their life to then want to go and kind of take advantage of a teenager or someone in their early 20s.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're just taking pictures to
copy.
But it's a difficult situation because a store needs to see the products to buy them. So what do you do? So I look at that sometimes and think it's not right the way they've done their business.
And at 19 years old, you don't think, I need to get them to sign an NDA. Oh, I know a lawyer who can get me an NDA.
Yeah.
That only comes with a lot of time and being ripped off.
Definitely. And I also think at that stage of the business where there's like a power, the way the power kind of scales are is you're almost reaching out to them and say, please give me opportunity. So it almost feels wrong to then say, sign an NDA or you can't take pictures, because you should almost be thankful for that opportunity. Whereas now where we are in the business and what we've built, we can demand those things a bit more, and the power shift has changed a bit. So even, ASOS has asked us to go in for a meeting again recently, and it's all on our terms, and we've decided it's not right for us.
Yeah.
Whereas years ago, that wouldn't have been the case.
It's a topic I love talking about, and I say it in meetings all the time. It's just leverage.
Yeah.
You've got so much leverage over these brands that you didn't have back in the day because of how quick you're able to move, of how much focus you've got, that you're only focusing on one thing. Like, look at ASOS, for example. Like, over the last few years, since COVID, they've plummeted in growth because they haven't been able to keep up with the demands. They haven't been able to evolve into what the modern consumer wants. And now, after going through hardship with them, you've got leverage. You can go to them and be like, this is what I want, these are the terms I want, and if you don't agree to them, then I'm not coming.
Absolutely. And it's funny because the buyers at ASOS, they're still, the team who I worked with are still there, and they said they had a meeting with their director and go, look, we helped start this brand up, how on earth do we not still have them? Because ASOS went through this shift where they started buying all the cool brands, and they then moved from that to ASOS Design, and that was a race to the bottom to compete with the likes of Boohoo. But obviously, when all the prices start going up and then their margins get squeezed, if their USP is the cheapest prices, it's really hard for them to raise those prices, and they've lost their differentiator, which was have all the cool brands. So now they're looking back at the cool brands and going, will you go onto ASOS? But no one wants to anymore because they know the value of their own brand. Particularly these retailers, they really kind of get you down on price. You have to pay for everything. You have to pay for your products to be labelled, sent into the warehouse. By the end of it, you're left with nothing. So it's like, what is the point?
So you think that was the reason for the downfall of ASOS?
I think it's because, they were trying to compete with fast fashion, and they lost their USP. And then why do you want to go on ASOS to buy, a cheap £6 white T-shirt? You can get it from, Shein or Boohoo or anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it was a short-sighted decision, actually. Whereas, where we are as a mid-market brand, there's more leverage because, we can, we're not super cheap, so we don't have that USP of not being able to raise the prices. We can still raise the prices, and we're not super expensive. So I think we're just about affordable when there's a downturn.
So you said ASOS helped you start up. So how did that work? Did they give you finance? Did they take a percentage of the business? Did you buy them back out when you left them? What happened there?
Nothing like that. So they literally just placed an order with us, and that was it. And then we just kept rolling. So there was never any finance from them. They never owned any of the business.
They just platformed you, essentially?
Platformed us, and they also gave us amazing business credit terms. We were on, I think, 15 days, whereas, I think they're up to 90 days now.
Yeah.
And there was even talks of them giving us 50% up front. And it's just like, they were the glory days. And, at the time as well, they had a department which was called Projects and Talent. And they were able to do things maybe they weren't able to do on some of the other departments. So just really lucky. And again, I think they wanted to do that, one, to help us as a young entrepreneur, but maybe that was their strategy of maybe looking more longer term and trying to nurture brands. Whereas when things started to go wrong, all of that kind of long-term thinking probably went out the window. But there's a lot to thank to ASOS and a couple of the people I worked with at ASOS, because without them, maybe I wouldn't have the brand at all.
Because that 50% upfront payment, that would have really helped cash flow. And in the early days of fashion brands, cash flow is just ridiculously important, but also extremely hard to manage, right?
Definitely. And I think it's funny how quickly things have changed. So 10 years ago, you could start a brand, and like we said, you could chuck a logo on the front, put it on Instagram, and you might get a few sales, and that could help bankroll it a little bit. Whereas now, from 2017, 2018 onwards, you have to have something different. So to do that, you need to make your own products. You need to find the best fabrics. Have the details on that make the difference. And with that, you need to go to factory, which has minimum order quantity, and you need to have a whole collection. You can't just launch one pair of trousers. You need to have a full outfit, or 10 products. So ASOS always used to say you need 18 products. So to do that, 18 products times a minimum of at least 200 if you find a really good factory, you know, most are like 500 plus. It's a lot of capital to tie up. So it's the barriers to entry are getting higher and higher.
Yeah, and also to sell your product nowadays, if you start a brand today, you have to be skilled at content creation, because that's the only way to get your brand seen. And that in itself takes loads of time and loads of trialing. And it's interesting because I always speak to people, so example, Ross Warswick, Danny from Crafted to a certain extent, Tommy from Mallet, they all started in the era of you could pay an influencer, would post it on their stories and they would get hundreds of sales just because they wore it. But now it's not like that. It's about creating brand advocacy and community and all the stuff that just wasn't the same 10 years ago. I
agree. It's crazy. And I wish I took advantage of that 10 years ago, even with the first brand. You know, when I started Movin in 2018, it was then, I think even then the influencer thing was starting to phase out. Because I remember we used to pay Alex Bowen. I think I paid him £1,000 a post, for example. And because we had no traffic, because we just started, I could see exactly the amount of traffic he was driving and then the revenue, and he might generate £1,200. So when you look at it, it was probably really a bad deal because I was only just covering the cost of him and then not factoring the product costs. But it's still done something. Now we can get someone to post and you will have zero change to your business. So now it's about what can content creators give you, and then how do you then amplify it through your own platforms?
It's all about value, lifestyle, products, and building a brand that people want to be associated with. Why did you decide to move to London from Cambridgeshire?
I'd lived at my parents' from birth till I was 25 or 26. Living in the same bedroom. We lived in a 3-bed end terrace house. Didn't have a much kind of, you know, I wasn't able to go and do much because living with the parents. So, especially also while my friends were at uni, I used that time to build the business. So I was very much at home and I didn't get to experience things that other people did. So I moved to London, one, for a lifestyle change, to live on my own. I wanted to be in and around the city. I felt that was quite an inspiring place to be. Had other friends in the e-com space that had also moved to London, and I thought what they were doing was cool. So I kind of wanted just to be in and amongst it. Be around other people, but I don't really socialise with people in the same space as me too much. But even driving through Mayfair and seeing the cars and stuff, that gives me like motivation to be like, I want to achieve the lifestyle that I want to live.
Why don't you socialise as much as others?
I think it takes a lot of energy to try and be fake and pretend that you're friends with someone when you're not. I've got my friends at home that I've been friends with since a kid, and I'm comfortable that, you know, I could trust them with anything. You know, they're the type of people, you know, if you can't do something or you need help, they come and help you for free. You know, I've had experiences with people who I've kind of, I guess, networked by accident with, but then have seen on occasions, and there's no loyalty there. So why would I want to hang around those people?
Yeah, it's very transactional.
Very transactional. You know, I had friends who I met, you know, outside my main circle, but I've seen them in the way that they're trying to build their businesses, and they, you know, if there's a celebrity, they'll try and cling on to them, and then the next person. It's like, why would I want to be around that? Or why would I want to appear like I'm behaving in that way as well? Because it's quite embarrassing.
Yeah, Tommy Mallet called them leeches.
Yeah.
Leeches.
Yeah, so yeah, it's, for me, I don't need to network to build a business. I'm sat on my laptop, you know, putting out content or, you know, paid ads or, you know, signing things off. I don't think meeting someone who is in a similar space or has got a bit of clout is going to do anything for me. So what's the point?
I agree. Do you need to move to London to be a success in fashion?
No. I grew the business massively in my hometown. I think that London can be a distraction at times. It's expensive. I think building my business and living at home with no rent and being able to not take a salary because I didn't have any bills to pay was the best thing that could happen to me. when you start having other expenses, it becomes a lot more tricky, because then you're thinking, how can I get the rent for this month? Then you start doing things and making decisions that aren't going to be right for you. I think 10 years ago, when retail was massive and you need agencies and you needed to have a showroom and then buyers came around and saw your stuff, London probably was a good place to be. But with everyone building through their own channels now, I don't see the need for it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think representing Manchester, a perfect example. There's boys who have up in Newcastle and Derby and Sheffield, like it's all over the UK brands. Bradford, I think. What's that brand? Mickey.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Mickey.
Yeah, he's from Bradford.
Yeah.
So like, I think with the rise of e-com, with the rise of social media, being in London isn't essential, but it's kind of it's an experience that I would advise everyone to try and do.
Yeah.
Just because, like you said, it's so inspiring being around here. Like you never know who you're going to bump into. There's like you said, it's a distraction. There's always things going on, which is true.
Yeah.
But I think, especially whilst you're young, it's just an amazing place to be.
It's an itch you need to scratch, I think.
Oh, that's the perfect way to sum it up. And if it's not an itch for you, then don't scratch it.
Absolutely.
You know, stay at home.
Definitely. I'd say the only thing I would say that having a business in London would do is the talent pool. Where my business is in St Ives, it can be tricky to find good people. We've had to kind of, go for hybrid working because we want the best staff. We know the best staff aren't going to live in Cambridgeshire potentially, so we have to make do. Whereas if you're in London, there's a bit of a pull there because it's exciting. The people want to live in London, especially young people might be in fashion. It's the perfect hub to find other people who can come and join the business. Whereas it gets more tricky when you move further away.
So how do you work that? Because I've just gone through a phase of having 42 people. We're right back down to 18 now. I've moved to London, so I'm looking to hire more people from this area. How do you work that in terms of, if it's hybrid, how often do they come to the office? How often do they work from home? How do you integrate them with the staff that work within the office most days? Tell me about that, because that's something I'm really working on in 2025.
It's a bit of a mix. We've got a rule that everyone has to come at least once a week.
Okay.
But 4 days a week they could potentially be at home. It's different for different departments. So if you're in products, you need to touch and feel products and sign things off. You need to be in the office. So minimum, 2-3 days a week.
Okay.
And that can be generally enough because, even if you're a designer, you can go and design things on your laptop, but then you need to be in the office to physically see the samples.
Yeah.
Someone in paid ads, in Ads Manager, you could technically do it 100% remote, but there needs to be in face-to-face interaction. And now we say every Tuesday we have a marketing meeting where everyone has to be in the office and it's face-to-face and we hash things out.
Yeah.
Customer service went from being in the office 5 days a week to now it's a little bit more hybrid because again they can focus a bit more on their own. But in terms of integrating, that's something really that we still need to get better at, because we find that there's times where someone's joined the business, maybe a graphic designer, and they've never ever spoke to the person in customer service, and we've only got a team of 20 people, so how could that be a problem? But we connect through things like Teams and stuff like that, which is both a blessing and a curse in my opinion.
Go on, why blessing and a curse?
Because it's very distracting. It's no different to you having your WhatsApp open all day long and it's ping, 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 ping. And that was something that was very hard for me actually as the founder, where I had lots of people reporting to me, was I'd get people, it's very easy just to type and then send. Yeah, especially the way people type now, or even on WhatsApp, you don't send the whole thing together, you send 6 different messages like in short form.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And it meant that, you have to have a sense of focus to really work on something properly. And if you've got this in the background where it's like ping, 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 then there's someone saying, oh, what's your plans tonight? A little bit unrelated to work, and then it throws you off. Or someone says, oh, could you just give me the login to this, or could you help me out with this? It's almost like you've got 20 people shouting at you, and you can't focus. So it's good for quick answers. It's good to communicate and say, I'm thinking about this, is this okay? And then a few people in a group chat can say, I agree. And I guess it takes people away from having lots of meetings, which is also very draining. But having that in the background is just not good. I would love to, I would love to see a chart of like the brain of like when you're fully focused with headphones in or and silence, you're at 100%. I'd love to know when you got Teams on what it'd be. I'd imagine it'd be about 20%.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Who were some of the most famous people to have worn your brand?
Recently we had Jake Paul. He actually wore it on holiday to Nice a few months ago, and someone I know was actually there in the same restaurant as him and took a picture. That was cool, but we actually posted that on our Instagram and ended up pulling it down because we were just getting flooded with we had like 50 comments of saying this is a really bad move, and then each comment was also getting like 50, 60 likes.
That's really interesting because Jake Paul's booming. If you watch Jake Paul's Netflix documentary, it is amazing. Really, yeah. Like Jake and Logan, where they've come from, the characters they create to get attention, the real people behind those masks, the ambitions, the journey, the heights that they want to get to. I think they're two very inspiring brothers, and people need to understand that how they portray themselves on social media, that's not really who they are.
Yeah, the character.
Yeah, it's a character they create to gain as much attention as possible, to, as Logan said, to become the best performer in the world that anyone's ever seen. I rate them so much. They know exactly what they want to do and know exactly how they're going to do it.
Me too. I think the problem is that Jake is polarising. So it's incredible for his career, but then I think then when you get brands doing deals with them or he wears the stuff, maybe it can be a bit more tricky. Logan's probably the better one because he's a lot more, he's like the nice, it's like the nice and the bad guy, and Logan's a nice guy. But yeah, that was amazing. We had Jamie Foxx wear our stuff. Again, that was totally by accident. He'd followed us on Instagram, we left it a little bit, and then he like commented on our picture and said, love your stuff, and then we ended up I ended up being on a FaceTime with him.
No way? You were on FaceTime to Jamie Foxx?
Yeah, he was in London. He was shooting a movie, and he was then flying or getting a train to Paris the next morning to go for his, I think it was his 50th birthday, and he wanted a new outfit.
That's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, so he rang and was like, bro, I need an outfit sent tonight to my address. Can you do it? And I thought, God, I don't know how I'm going to turn this around. But we ended up getting an Uber to pick up stuff from the warehouse and get it delivered to him. And then he ended up wearing it for his birthday the next day in lots of different videos and stuff like that.
Did you see that have an impact on website visits, sales, or was it more just a total brand piece?
It was a brand piece. It got lots of engagement through our own platform. But again, you know, he'd posted it on his story a couple of weeks before because he'd got a few things when he was in the LA.
Yeah.
And then just posted it again, just totally for free, out of the goodness of his heart. He liked the stuff. And that didn't really have much of an impact either. And he's got like 20 million followers.
Isn't that crazy? Followers. Jamie Foxx has 20 million followers. He posted your brand on his story and it had no impact on your site.
Absolutely crazy.
That just tells you about influencer marketing today.
Yes, it's finished. But it's great from a brand point of view. I think, you know, even on Instagram, if people discover your brand and they start scrolling and then they see Jamie Foxx wearing it or someone else, it gives you a bit more brand credibility. So yeah, we had a good relationship with him up until, you know, he got a little bit ill. I remember even then a couple of months later he wanted some more stuff, and he filmed an unboxing and showed the products, wearing it and stuff. And it's just nuts that he would actually take time out to do that when he's, you know, super successful. He's like one of the best movie stars of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, very surreal moment, and you know he was amazing. And yeah, just, you know, it was a surreal moment just having him like video call me and then, you know, sending voice notes. Wild.
It's a dream of people who start a fashion brand to have celebrities wear their stuff. So how did you get famous people to wear your clothing brands?
We try not to do too much PR or, you know, paying people to wear it. It tends to be quite organic. So Jamie, Jake Paul, you know, they're people who've reached out to us through the brand we've built. We had a lot of NBA and NFL stars wearing our stuff. Again, that was just by luck because they liked the product. I remember waking up one morning and it was Fit of the Week on the NBA, and one of the players was wearing our stuff on on the tunnel. So we kind of leave it down to that, and we don't do too much gifting unless they reach out to us and say, look, can I have a few pieces, then we will.
So what you said there is really interesting. It struck a chord with me. So you mentioned Jamie Foxx, Jake Paul, NFL, NBA players, all American. How much of your business is over in the States?
At the minute, it's 50%.
Wow. Why do you think that is?
I think we really resonated with the audience. We had a few American guys that we used for content that we used to boost through paid ads, and it just worked almost overnight. We went from 0 to a lot, in the space of a year. Actually, in 2020 or 2021, 80% of our business was America.
Wow.
And we actually said, look, we need a bit more of a UK audience, because you never know what's going to happen with cross-border. So it's only been since then we've kind of put it, as one of our focuses to build the UK business.
Yeah.
Because also I want to walk down the street and see people wear it. Whereas in America, it feels very far away.
Yes. So I always say that to people, because obviously my business resells luxury goods. So when I see someone walking down the street with a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci bag, like, I have no idea whether they bought that from me, but you must walk down the street and see people wearing your stuff.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It's amazing, because also I find it funny they've got no idea that that I'm the one who's created the brand. Even, for example, we had a tree surgeon in 2 days ago to cut down a tree in the back garden, and he was asking what I did, and he said, oh, actually I've heard of the brand. He bought a shirt in the summer. So it's just all these different things where people know it or have bought it, and it's a great feeling. Another one, when I was in Miami last year, my friend was having breakfast, and he was wearing Mauve, and the guy behind the bar was like, bro, I've literally just placed an order, and he pulled up his phone in Miami and he'd had a $250 order from Mauve. Then we went to like a day bar just to get some food and like a couple of drinks, and the guy behind the bar asked about the brand. He said he'd been seeing it on Instagram, and he was like, he didn't know whether to buy it or not, and had a conversation with him. And then we got a review on our Trustpilot, I think it was almost like a year later, where someone had said that he'd met that same bartender in Miami because he was wearing Mauve, and the guy and the bartender said that he'd met the owner, and the guys are really nice and stuff, and he wrote that in his review, which I think is wild.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
We touched on it earlier before, people, but people is like one thing I'm obsessed with in business. How do you find the right people for your business?
It's difficult. Things change. Our strategy changes. We always use recruiters, for example.
I rung up my brother about 2 hours ago and said, the next hires we make, we need to use recruiters.
Yeah.
Why do you use recruiters?
Because for the first few hires, I tried to do it myself. Well, I did it myself. It was very time consuming. Trying to find the right people's near enough impossible. Like, we tried lots of different sources, Indeed, LinkedIn, and the quality of the applicants was so poor. And it was also spending thousands boosting the ads on LinkedIn, for example, and not getting anything. So I thought, I don't have the time physically to do that. Again, it's that trade-off of time versus money.
Yeah.
So we'd much rather pay 15% to a recruiter and just get someone in good, where they do the legwork. But then again, recruiters do come with some bad things as well. It's in their best interest to get the best salary.
Yeah.
So what you find is then,
because they take a percentage of the salary.
They take a percentage. So then what you'd find is someone who should be X amount per year, all of a sudden they're asking for this, and you go, how come the market is full of these people who've not got a huge amount of experience, but they're charged, they're expecting huge salaries. And it potentially is down to recruiters.
The recruiter's like, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a trade-off, really. But, recruiters are good. I think they have lots of contacts already. They might have done, tried to do recruitment for another business with a similar role, so they've already been speaking to people. Yeah. So it makes it easier. But, we're still finding it tricky even with recruiters. They're putting together good candidates, but then there's still things that aren't quite right because I've done everything in the business, I know exactly what I need. So obviously when I'm teeing up questions about certain things, I sometimes find it very difficult to get the people who really get it, especially in D2C fashion. It's not that. It's quite a new industry.
Yeah. Why don't you hire from competitors?
It's a good question. We probably try to. We probably get recruiters say, go and contact X, Y, Z from these companies. It's a difficult one. I'm happy to hire from competitors. It's just unfortunate again, probably location.
Yes.
That maybe our competitors aren't so close or even London based. So
Would you ever move your office into London?
I've toyed with the idea a lot of times, and I've decided against it every time.
Why?
The cost of the rent. I think the space that we've got would probably cost 20 grand a month in London.
How much does it cost at the moment for you?
£2,000 a month.
Wow.
That's just for the office. Obviously, we've got the 3PL warehouse.
Yeah, of course.
Which is a huge cost, but office space is very cheap.
Yeah.
Where I spoke about recruitment and finding people and them living maybe further adrift, we've got into like a position where if our office is here in the middle, we've got people kind of around the whole circle.
Yeah.
So if we move to London, we're then the people who are, north of our office are very far away.
Yeah.
One thing maybe in the future is to have a satellite office in London where maybe only a set team are based there.
Yes. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yes, that's where hopefully I want to get to.
Yeah.
And particularly now where I moved to in Surrey, it's a real pain in the arse getting home to go to the office.
What has been the number one key hire for you and your company?
I would say the merchandiser that we brought on is hire number one.
So many people say that in fashion. Because I've never had to have a merchandiser because the product for us sells itself. Like it's brands like Louis Vuitton, it's brands like Gucci. It's product that has been bestsellers for them for years. So if we put it on our website, it will sell out within a day or two.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys, you have to curate it super importantly, especially as a new brand.
Yeah. Sorry. Particularly also where we make our stuff and the timelines. You can't just go, I need some new product next week. It's got to be well thought out and it's got to be done months in advance.
Yeah.
So she came in and she funny enough, she was on the ASOS department, an ASOS team that helped build Mauve, but also was buying the first brand I had.
Oh, interesting.
So she saw my whole journey. So she was sold on the business before she even started the interview process.
It felt like her baby essentially as well.
Yeah. So she was in at number one. She'd known me for a number of years, and she hit the ground running and knew exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So that got us into a great position. But then I'd actually have to mention another person who isn't full time, but is a fractional FD.
Yeah.
And he has changed the game really for the business.
Tell me more about that, because when we hired a CFO, effectively the same thing, fractional as well, because you don't need them full time.
No.
Someone explained it to me where it's like doing business with a blindfold not on. So when you've got your startup, when you're hiring a few people, you have, if you're not financially tuned, you do not know what direction your finances are going in. When the FD comes in or CFO comes in, it is like them coming over to you, putting their hands on your head and taking off that blindfold, and you can finally see the direction that you're going in. Yeah. Sometimes it's a bad one and sometimes it's a good one. So explain to me why it was so important for you.
So the business was in a position where we were growing very fast. All my efforts were, how do I grow the revenue? What can I do for the next thing to go from 1 million to 5 million, which is what we've done in a year, for example.
Wow.
And I wasn't really that bothered about the profit for some reason. It was a really stupid thing, but my mind was just keeping things moving and wasn't taking a step back. And we did have a P&L and we did do it on a regular basis, but there's even things within our P&L that meant that there was hidden costs.
Yeah.
So for example, we had a 3PL cost, which is our warehousing, and within that, the way that they invoiced, it had, at the time we were using the warehouses companies to ship out, so we were using DHL but through the warehouse. So our invoices would have outbound shipping, it'd have the warehousing costs from picking, relabeling, everything all in one. So we didn't really understand what our costs were.
And where you could cut them.
Where we could cut them.
Yeah.
So then he kind of looked at our P&L, sliced and diced it and gone, oh my God, you're spending a fortune on things that you probably could make £1 million from the amount of money that you're wasting.
Yeah.
A good example is we used to fly everything over from China because we wanted it quick. And that cost us, we spent £500,000 in 1 year on air freight. And he said, look, if you can get a little bit further ahead and get everything on a boat, you're going to be spending next to nothing. And I think in 1 year, we cut that cost by 400 odd grand.
How does it make you feel looking back at those mistakes now?
I think, bloody hell, I could be a lot more richer if I was a bit more careful. But it's a learning curve.
Of course.
And at the end of the day, my energy was on building the brand, and if I was behind, numbers and a P&L and spending all my time trying to be an accountant, I wouldn't have built the business. That's why accountants are accountants. I'm a brand owner. So yeah, there's lots of costs. For example, we used to send everything express to America to our customers, and at the time there was fuel surcharges, COVID surcharges. And the fuel surcharge was 36%. So we got to a position where we were spending 40 or 50 quid a parcel, but only charging the customer 20 quid.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were losing 50 grand a month just on shipping to Americans. So yeah, totally changed the business. We, again, even recently renegotiated prices with FedEx, and over the course of a year, it's going to save 150 grand. And it's just across the board, it's all those different cost savings that really make a difference that you just don't think about. The extra pounds here, but on huge volumes, it makes a massive difference.
As soon as you're doing any substantial number of revenue, a financial director is essential, right?
Definitely. I think you could so easily go out of business. There's been times where before an FD, we were growing, so I was ordering stock to fulfill that growth, and we didn't have the cash for it. And, really, we're in a lucky position with Shopify brands. There's different finances you can get that can kind of be a bit of a saving grace.
Shopify Capital has saved us on numerous of occasions.
Yeah, so there's lots of things. Obviously, it's very expensive when you look at it versus traditional banking.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first started in business, I tried to get a £5 grand loan and they laughed me out the door. Whereas now, you can get £1 million, £1.5 million.
Yeah.
Which, it's nuts. So 20 years ago, there was positions within my business where I would have gone out of business. I didn't have the capital the cash flow. So it's good.
So you said merchandise is super important, FD super important. What's your role within the company?
My role now is I spend a lot of time on marketing still. I spend a lot of time overseeing product. Again, I'm not executing, but I'm giving my vision. So I think the thing I do now is steer the ship, and it's being a bit of a visionary and saying what's next. Pop-ups, how I want the brand to look. Hiring's obviously a massive one as well. It was also very difficult at the start. When I went from working all day long, I used to have this feeling as well where it was adrenaline from 9 a.m. to when I went to sleep, because I had so much things to do. I was typing like this, and I was going from here to here, very chaotic. And then transitioning from that to then moving away from day-to-day activities, it almost felt like I was being lazy.
I'm in a very similar situation now. Before you got here today, I was just trying to fill my time with stuff that I didn't need to do.
Yeah.
That I've got a team to do, but I just felt like I needed to do something because I was just waiting around for you.
Yeah.
How did you get through that?
It was a battle for two years, really. It's only been recently where I've understood that actually my role has changed, and it is to steer the ship, and you need time to be able to think properly and make the right decisions.
What helped you understand that, though?
I'm not really sure. Probably listening to other podcasts and other things online, because it was something I searched for a long time, where it was what is the role of a CEO or a managing director, because I didn't know. Because also I never had a job. I had a Sunday job for 4 hours when I was, I think, 17 or 18, right when I started the business. But I didn't know what an office culture was like. I didn't know what structure, I didn't know what process was like. So even bringing people in, I had no idea what I was doing, and I was going into the unknown. So then, you know, for the first couple of years, I was still able to work on things and feel busy. But then there came to a point where I felt busy, but I wasn't doing a lot.
Busy fool.
Yeah, so it was difficult to understand what my role actually really was and what I needed to do. But I've realised it's, I guess it's leading people, just being able to speak to them and give advice. It makes them improve their job or move things along quicker. But we need to look forward and grow the business. So spending quiet time thinking about what can you do to go and grow the business is more important than spending 4 hours packing orders or being a customer service agent, which I had to do at the start.
Do you think you're a good leader?
Not really, no. I don't think I am. I think, again, that's something that I've really struggled with, because I felt like I'm not like one of those 50-year-old blokes who's at top of the chain at a big company and really good at leading and really good at speaking to people in a way that gets them motivated. It's been a learning curve for me where I felt like I've got better. I even used to be scared to call someone up when have a meeting with someone because they'd done something wrong, because I felt like I wasn't in the position to do so. But as time's gone on and more employees have come in, I've realised that actually you need to be that person, because actually if you don't, you lose trust in all your other employees.
I agree with all of that. I'm in the same boat. I don't think I'm a good leader. I'm journaling about it a lot at the moment. I'm reading a lot of books about it. I'll show you the one that's through there, and I'll get it for you, because it is just so good. I had the realisation the other day that I was reading it on the train yesterday, and I had a bit of a mini panic attack. So I was like, I'm an awful leader. I'm so bad. I need to work at this. All my energy needs to go on becoming a better leader. But then when I thought that, it's like, but I've also got this to do, and I've also got this to do, and I've also got that to do. Yeah. So like, I think leadership, especially when you're in your 20s, right?
28 now, yeah.
Yeah, when people are in your 20s, it's a skill that you either naturally have and you're really good at it, so you have it in your 20s and you'll have it through the rest of your life. But I don't think it's a skill that you can't work on. I think everyone can work on it, and if you work on it every single day, you will become better at it. Yeah. But it is such a tough skill to have, right?
It is difficult. And it's lots of other things and things that you think about. Every employee also wants a progression, and they want to understand how they can progress through their job and through your company, and you need to get buy-in from them. And I've not really put in set processes where people can go, right, I know what I'm working towards. And that's what I feel really guilty about as well, because, and I try not to also share too much on my social media, because I don't want bad sentiment from my staff thinking I'm working so hard and there's Jordan sat in a nice car or on holiday. So I almost feel bad for doing nice things, because, people, my staff follow me on Instagram, and I don't want to look like a knob. I then worry that I'm not communicating with them in the right way, so they feel like they're doing a good job, or that, there's times where employees have felt like they're doing a bad job because I've not spoken with them. But that's the other thing about, time, where sometimes when things were still busy, I can't give all my time to someone. So it's really tricky, and it's what we're trying to do now, and actually with a lot of help from the fractional FD, is how can you put in a hierarchy to take even more off your plate? There's less people reporting to you, and then you've got time to, put together performance plans or other things to help your staff excel. But then it's a tricky part in the business as well, because where you've gone from 0 to 20 people, you have people at number 5 in the business, where when you start to bring in senior people, there's then a power shift where they've gone from being really important to then someone they might have to report to someone. And some people like it and they're fine with it, some people hate it, and then we've had things where, recently we've had a few people leave, for example, but it was interesting because they were some of the maybe start early people, and they really struggled with the changes of the business and going from a really small team and being able to speak to me every day to then feeling like they weren't as important.
We've had that this year as well. I think that's the sign of a growing business. It's the sign of people you should have around you. It's the sign of people who actually want to be there rather than just are there because they were there from the beginning. And like I say this a lot. Like, for example, Leicester City in football. Like the same people who got them from League One never got them to League One to the Championship, never got them from the Championship to the Premier League. Same team never won the Premier League. So it's like they are the right people for then, until they're not, and that's just life. And it's also like it's good for them to move on as well, because if they're not enjoying it and if they feel like they're not as important anymore, then they should move on to something new and something different. And I think that's the good thing about business.
Absolutely.
That if you have an honest and adult conversation about it, you shouldn't just stay because you've been there for a long time. Yeah. If you feel like you're less appreciated, if you feel like your input isn't as valued anymore because the team's got bigger, then maybe in essence that's true. And you just have to be real about it. Yeah. And you should, and people should move on.
Absolutely. And we've had cases where people have felt like that, but they've stayed. But then actually, what it causes is more harm than good.
Resentment,
and then that can really start to infiltrate through other people in the business. So it's really true that you can have a bad egg, and they can really wreck your business if you don't nip it in the bud.
Oh, me and Joe all the time, my brother, who I started the brand with, say. And we got this analogy. So if you have a bowl of fruit. So if you have a bowl of fruit, you have one rotten fruit. In the space of 2 or 3 days, all of the fruit bowl gets rotten, and it's the same within a company. Yeah. So and also entitlement, something that grows as well with people who've been there the longest. And I get it from a human nature point of view. If you've been there for the longest period of time, you've been the closest to the founders and to everyone else coming in. You will naturally get entitlement, but it's those who can identify that to not get entitled, and to maybe, if you want more responsibility, if you want more promotions being offered to you, you do have to attack the situation differently than rather sulking and being, well, I've been here longer, so I should be entitled to this.
Definitely. I think that's what I found difficult as well. We're very open with Shopify. Everyone's got logins. They need to do things. On launch day, everyone can see the revenue we're doing. Mm-hmm. And when there's also still quite a small team, people think they're deserving a much bigger chunk than they are. I
should be getting a slice of this 2 million quid. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually it doesn't work like that, and they don't see all the other costs. And
of course, yeah.
It is what it is, but it's
I think every fashion brand goes through it.
Yeah.
Because it looks so glorious from the outside until you're really in the business, how much time and effort you're spending on it, how much costs there are involved, how many people you have to hire.
It's something that I spoke with the FD before. It's like, I might go on holiday, I might have something nice that costs, that's very expensive, but they don't see some of the things. Like, there was a time where I had to put in 50 grand of my money not that long ago because we needed to buy something, and then they're not going to do that.
100%,
I'm the one who's got the sleepless nights if things don't go right, or I've also got the responsibility of every staff member that needs to be paid every month.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. If people want a bigger slice, then go and start their own thing.
This is what we've said to people in the past, and I think when you're honest and have that conversation with people, and you have the conversation that we've been having now and talking about all of the heartache that comes with starting a fashion brand. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing, it's beautiful that we can wake up every day and call this our job. But in certain circumstances, like, it is tough as well, Yeah,
it's nuts. And I think I spent 5-6 years and didn't pay myself.
Yeah.
No one else would have really have done that. Mm-hmm. I was, again, fortunate, I was young, I didn't have any responsibilities, but other people want to go and get a job and start earning money. I decided that wasn't for me. So now if I reap some rewards, it's because of the 10 years of work I put in.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, I feel like we've been in similar situations where you feel like you have to explain why you're making certain decisions because you feel guilty that other people will subconsciously or consciously judge you for making those decisions.
I totally agree. It's even like today, actually coming on the podcast, I have to say to people, I'm going to be out away from the desk for a few hours because I'm doing a podcast. And then in the back of my head, I'm still thinking, everyone's going to think I'm taking the piss and I'm not working.
Isn't it crazy?
And I'm like, why should I even have to explain myself? It's like, I should say, this is what I'm doing, and that's it.
I wonder how you changed the mindset of not feeling guilty when you're not in the office with everyone, or when you've spent money on a new gadget or camera or car, or I wonder how that mindset shifts.
I'm really not sure, because it's even like, I bought a nice car and I've never posted it on my like main grid, and I didn't tell anyone in the office at all about it. It was only until probably about 3 or 4 months down the line, a couple of people would see me in it where they'd asked about it and I was open about it. But there was times I actually parked it so far away from the office so people didn't see me pull up in it. And it's like, really, I don't know if that should be the way you feel. But it
shouldn't, 100% it shouldn't, but I understand why you do, because very, very, very similar feelings.
Yeah, I think it's down to the sizes of the business probably as well. We're very, people can contact you very easily.
Close knit.
It's very close knit. So you don't want to be that one person who's, the odd person,
the black sheep,
who's doing things that no one else is allowed to do.
But when you take a step back and look at this conversation, it's weird, because it's like, but Jordan, it's your business.
Yeah, I know. And it's interesting because you do find yourself becoming a prisoner within your own business.
I've said this on the podcast before, and I speak to my brother about it all the time. It's weird that it's so strange. Like, I've never met someone who's also said that phrase, but yeah, you do. Because you don't want to feel guilty, you don't want to seem as if you're moving away from the crowd, or you don't want to look to them as if you're entitled to do this stuff. But again, you've worked for this and you've built this and you've put yourself in this situation. You should reap the rewards. You should. Like, me and Joe have been invited to Drapers tonight. We've been nominated for one of the awards tonight, but we're not going.
Really?
Yeah, we feel bad.
That's nuts.
I know, it's nuts. We feel bad for spending the money on the tickets. We feel bad for, if we won the awards, we were saying, oh no, we need to get this person, we need to bring this person. But if we bring that person, then we can't take that person. And if we bring that person, then they're going to be upset because they've inputted a lot of revenue recently, which has made us get nominated for this award. And then me and Joe just turned around together and said, fuck it, we're not going. We're not going to the Drapers Awards, even though it's something we've dreamed of being nominated for since we started the business.
That's so funny you say that, because the recent award I got, I went through the same thought processes of who the hell would I bring, because I don't want to piss people off. I brought my mum because she's been a big part of the journey. But even then I thought, because she also now works for the business, but she's only joined a year ago. And I was starting to think, are people at the start going to look at me and go, why the hell have you brought her? Because she's only just joined the business, I deserve it. And I thought, no, I'm just going to bring her because, she's been at the very start of my journey. She supported me.
Yeah.
If anyone's got a problem with it, then they've got a problem with it. But it's still a thought process that I had to go through and battle in my head with for a number of months when I knew the awards was coming up.
If anyone turns around and says to you, your mum shouldn't have gone to the awards with you, they need to go.
I agree.
So talking about awards, you just hit the Financial Times UK's fastest growing privately owned company list. That's an amazing achievement, by the way. Congratulations. Yeah. How have you done that when Mauvais isn't producing trend-chasing collections like oversized hoodies with a logo on?
Good question. So in terms of what, because there's a lot of brands.
Yeah, like how have you made your brand stand out from the rest when there's so many brands that are coming up now that find it also so easily to grow, but only to a certain extent? How have you broken that ceiling and grown, still growing so quickly, also without being so prominent on social media?
I think the market at the minute is all very samey. You've got the same brands with oversized t-shirts.
Yeah.
You know, you're now seeing the high street brands copy the same format that the brands that were doing it originally, and it all feels the same. We've always stayed true to our DNA, which is smart, slim cut product. It's all about the fabrics. It's all about the getting good value for your money. And we've never deviated from that, apart from once, which didn't work very well. And we just done it for one collection and moved back to what we were originally doing. There's lots of brands that are way bigger than the popular brands like Reiss and other things, which we feel like we've got a similar product to, but actually better quality and half the price.
Yeah.
So we're very aware of where we are in the market.
The value you provide.
The value you provide. And we don't want to be that Instagram brand that everyone talks about, wears it once, and then, again, there's one example of a t-shirt that probably most lads are wearing. I won't name it because I like the brands, but you kind of look at it now and go, it's really cringy, because also you've got...
It's gotten so big that it's now uncool.
Yeah, it's uncool. And I always think back to Lyle & Scott when I was a child, because Lyle & Scott blew up. Everyone wanted their logo on their polo, and then overnight it suddenly became uncool.
The brand I associate that with is All Saints.
Yeah, them as well. And I don't ever want to be that brand. And it's much easier being a Zara, where there's never really unbelievable hype, apart from maybe the women's, there's lots of TikTok trends with them and stuff, but it doesn't feel the same. There's this weird like hype around certain brands on Instagram for menswear where it goes up and it comes down just as quick, and we don't want to be that brand. We kind of want to just go along in the shadows, but grow and grow and grow, and you know, it's never going to go out of fashion. So it's just innovating and just moving slowly and slowly our product along and getting better quality without being a fad. And another one, I know, sorry to now you go into the next question, but
No, keep going.
You know, there's a lot of brands that were doing a lot of what I'd call trap clothing, like, you know, hoods, you know, tracksuits, and for the kids who like to go on road or whatever you call it.
Yeah, roadmen.
Roadmen.
Yeah.
And that's apparently had its day, and it's starting to decline as well. And it's like, you can have a few really good years in a business where you're on a fad or on a trend. Another one would be some of the brands with the logos on. Yeah. Remember Hera jeans, for example, when they were popping off. But it's short-lived, and you unless you make your money and you get out or you sell it. I know, like Hoodrich, for example, they sold their business. So yeah, he got lucky really to be able to sell it when he did.
Well, he had a good strategy because the quicker you rise, the quicker you fall, right?
Yeah.
So you need to, if your aim is to sell the business, you need to sell it when you're at the peak. But the only problem is with that is you never know what the peak is. So you need to get out when you're doing good.
Yeah.
Because say that you sell at 5 million, but you could have got 7 million for it. You'd rather sell at 5 million than 1.
Yeah.
Or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a risky game, and I've seen it time and time again where that's happened with brands, and they've gone up and they've gone really far down, but a lot of founders don't manage to sell it, or you know, they get into financial difficulty when they've bought a team of people and they've got overheads, and when it starts to crash, those overheads don't change.
Yeah.
So I'd rather build a sustainable business. You know, we can grow a bit slower. We don't mind. It's about profit. It's about growing, and it's standing the test of time in 20 years to come. Obviously, an exit would be fantastic, but also I know the worth of the business. You know, especially being in the Sunday Times list, you've got every company under the sun asking to take me out for coffee to talk about exits. But I'm still thinking it's a distraction, and
you're not ready yet.
It's not ready, and it's not at the value I want.
Yeah.
So let's keep going.
In 2021, you paid off your mum's mortgage for a birthday.
Yeah.
How did that feel, being able to do that?
Amazing. I actually took her to, probably not far from where you grew up, I took her to Chester.
Yeah.
She always wanted to go to Chester Zoo, and we stayed at the hotel there, and I took my mum and my dad. And I had a print off of the money that I'd sent her, and kind of we had breakfast, whatever, and she opened it, and I filmed it all. I never put it anywhere, but it was just a nice memory. And I think that shows kind of what my mum's meant to me over the years, and also her guidance she's given me from the very start of my career. Prior to that as well, always supporting me. I've always felt that my mum made me feel that I was going to do something special from a child, and I've had that within me to keep going and going and going. And even now I think I'm going to achieve greatness, and that's down to the way my mum was with me from a child all the way up to now.
What type of things would she do?
She would always tell me that I'm amazing and I'm going to do something, and I can always do it. So my mum was always in marketing. My mum's had businesses before, little dance schools. You know, she'd been ripped off and she went out of business before. But she was always a dreamer and the type of person to say, if you want to go and achieve it, you can go and achieve it. Whereas my dad is a lawyer. He had a business before that didn't work out either. But he's very pessimistic, and he says to me, like, not so much now, but when I was starting out,
same as my dad,
yeah, he was saying, "Oh, you're on cuckoo land."
Yeah, okay, maybe I'd take that back just because I know my dad listens to these podcasts. He wouldn't say that, but he would be definitely more reserved and be like, "Oh, are you sure? Are you sure about that?" But then when it was like ready to take the final step, my dad was like, "You know what? You're only 18. Just fucking do it."
Yeah. So yeah, my mum was always the one who gave me the drive, and I was always, although she was never rich, she always had good jobs, and I was inspired by her journey because she came from nothing.
Yeah.
We still didn't have a lot, but it's still been able to see the progression of her and what she'd done. You know, she was like global head of marketing at certain businesses and things like that. So, but she'd started from zero. She had no qualifications, and she just grafted hard for her life. Had a lot of hardship as well, and it just gave me the belief that I can go and do something.
So you saw growing up that you had evidence that someone in my family, someone who looks like me, someone who sounds like me, talks like me, they can be successful, so why can't I?
Yeah, definitely. And it's weird, her success, we're not rich, like I said, we live in a 3-bed and terrace house, but she gave me a good life, and she supported the family. She was the breadwinner, so it was like, I was so inspired by that, as especially, it's kind of roles reversed. I know we're living in a different world now, but it was always seen as the man brings home the money, but she was the kind of, the driving force, I guess, behind the family, which I was super inspired by, and pair that with what she used to say to me all the time, and she'd always be, yes, you can do it, and I think that really stuck with me, and I wanted to make sure that, she got something for all the hard work she'd put in through her life, and then helping me grow up.
She sounds like a real leader.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, yeah, it's funny. Now in the office, she works in the business, and she definitely is, likes to stamp her authority on things. I always say to her as well, you've got to stop, sometimes it slips out and she calls me darling in front of people, and I say, look, you're making me look like a little child. It's a strict name relationship, and there's no darlings and things like that. But it's it's nice having her around, and she's always also been someone who I've been able to speak to if I've had an issue.
Yeah.
I did feel that at certain stages of the business, and particularly now where her advice probably there was a ceiling, and I felt like that's also why I got the FD, and they've got other people to get sound advice off, because they got a time where there's things that she couldn't answer, for example, and I had to go and find it from other people.
What has been the toughest period for Mauve?
I would say towards probably around 2019. We hadn't been in business that long with Mauve. But I remember I got a bit of advice about certain brands that were, able to make a lot of money through basic T-shirts. They're called brand carriers. So
what's a brand carrier?
A good example would be Ralph Lauren.
Okay.
They're just their logo on the side, but they just would sell loads of it, and you just know it's a brand. It's just branded slightly.
Hero products, or is it different?
It's basics, but they've got branding on. And the idea is it's meant to be super high volume. It's meant to be cheap to make. It's like just 100% cotton, and you just churn it. It sits in the background, and then the hero products bring people onto the website.
Okay.
But in the background, you're selling all these basics, basically.
And you tried that, and it didn't work, or you didn't try it and you should have?
I remember just somehow, I don't know how I did it. I managed to get 100% credit from this factory, and on the advice of some people I was working with at the time, they were saying, all the loads of like basics. And I remember having a bill with a factory of £100,000 and I couldn't pay it. And I remember on Christmas morning, the factory was still trying to call me, and I just could not switch off because I had this bill and I literally could not pay it. I think we had virtually, I think we were waiting for like an ASOS invoice. At that time we tried to move away from the invoice factoring. So I had an invoice still to come in, there was other things still to come in, and there was not a lot of cash. It was right before COVID, and they were calling me every single day, and I was having to try and like negotiate like a different payment term. I think we ended up splitting the payment down across 6 months or something, but because it didn't sell as well, it didn't sell in the way I wanted it to, and I was left with all the stock, and I couldn't.
It wasn't selling quickly. It wasn't selling at all. What happened?
I mean, it was selling, but it wasn't selling at the pace I needed to pay off this bill. So yeah, that was a lesson learned. Again, all these little things starting to build up from like I really need someone who's an expert in finance before I make these stupid decisions. Yeah, that was a tricky one. I think there's been multiple ones over the course of the 5 years. There's probably been worse ones, in the first business, spending money on exhibitions, but then, HMRC calling saying that they need to take the stock back because they've not like cleared it properly on the day of the shoot, on the day of the exhibition.
Wow.
Things like that. I remember having to plead with them on the phone to say please don't do it, which I think they let me off because they knew I was a young lad and trying to do something. But yeah, every day there's things that go wrong.
Yeah.
Some disasters, some not so much, but yeah, there's so many. There's more that I've probably got up my sleeve, but maybe for another day.
You've just become a dad.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's that feeling like?
Amazing. Yeah. I bet a lot of people ask me. They go, actually, I took all my girlfriend brought me back home as a surprise on Sunday to meet. So the baby could meet my friends.
I thought you were going to say, my girlfriend just brought the baby home one day as a surprise. I was thinking that would have been a big surprise.
No, so she said that we were going to Bournemouth. I don't know why, but she actually was driving us back to to St Ives to meet my friends. And they all said to me, like, how does it feel to be a dad? Like, do you feel any different? I say, I feel exactly the same as I did the day before I was going to have a child, and I feel the same as I did a year ago. But I guess now it's just it feels special, especially when you're holding her, and it's that it's 50% of it is your yourself, and that I guess there's more of a purpose on what I'm doing as well, because she will eventually one day will be impacted by the work I'm doing now.
Yeah, gives you more of a meaning.
Absolutely.
How do you separate your personal and work life?
I don't really. No, it's tricky. I'm definitely trying to get to grips with life after the baby at the minute. I've got like an office in the front of the house, which I lock the door and try not to come out when I've got calls and stuff. But it's been tricky. I've had a few weeks where I've kind of been dipping in and out of work and kind of spending time with the baby and stuff. It's something that I always need to work on, because I'm never there's such a kind of crossover and the lines are blurred, particularly with working at home. When I lived at my parents', there was not a lot of kind of personal life. It was all work. Moved to London, I was, I guess, switching off a bit and doing things, whereas now, again, it's blurred. And when I'm not working, I'm still looking at my phone and looking at things, which is...
Looking at Shopify.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, looking at emails.
Yeah.
WhatsApp, group chats.
Yeah.
Suppliers.
Definitely. And the problem is as well, is like with my phone, is that when I started the business, I never thought I'm going to need a work phone, or I probably couldn't afford it. So everyone's got my personal number.
Yeah.
And I'm getting, there's group chats with factories, there's people I don't know how my phone number's somewhere. I don't know if it's LinkedIn that have managed to put it on some website. But
yeah, so LinkedIn, if you put it in LinkedIn, there's a software that people use. It's mainly recruiters and salespeople. They'll plug it into LinkedIn, they'll get your phone number, and then they'll just ring you.
Yeah, so I've made like the rule that if anyone tries to call me and I don't have it saved, they don't get answered. I've turned my voicemail off. I also, if I somehow, for example, if I know there's a delivery coming and it's a 07 number and it's close to the time, I might answer it. And sometimes I get caught on a call where it's not the person I thought it was. It's not the delivery driver, it's the salesperson, or it's someone who wants my time. So now I
get catfished.
Get catfished. So now I save my phone, don't answer this to anyone who calls me, I answer to, I don't want to speak to again.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I've done that before as well.
It's literally about hundreds of don't answer this on my phone.
What do you think is your biggest personal weakness, and what are you doing to work on it?
Is that in both organisation?
Interesting.
Yeah, really bad. You know, I'm the type of person where if you look at my desktop on my Mac, it's just full of everything. I think that's probably the creative side of me. I think you can be one or two people.
For sure.
And it's even interesting when we've hired for marketing roles. Marketing's quite a broad name, but actually when you start to dig deep into what that consists of, you've got some marketers who need to be data driven, you've got some who need to be creatively driven. Yeah. And it's near enough impossible to get one who can do both.
Yeah. It is, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I've had to outsource to agencies because I'm very much like you. I'm not organised at all.
Yeah. So my thing is everyone who I hired had to be organised. So most people who joined the business at the start, they set up the processes because I didn't know how to set a process up. But I'm not really doing anything to change it because I know that's not me. Yeah. And I'm never going to be that type of person. You know, I was the type of person. My mum would nag me about, not paying a bill on time. Parking fines still go through to my parents' house, and I just chuck it to the side and don't pay it, and it goes up and up and up. Yeah, I'm never going to change, no matter how much I try. And I've tried to, and I've just accepted I can't. So it's now bringing people in around me who can do it for me.
100%. I remember having a coffee with someone who I was gonna do some work with, and he was talking about I'm improving this, I'm improving that, and I want to work on this, and I want to work on that. And I was thinking why don't you just triple down on what you're amazing at and just get people around you that are good at the things that you don't like doing or you're not good at? I get to a certain extent you want to understand stuff and you want to improve on weaknesses a little bit, but if you're trying so hard and it's clearly not in your DNA to be organised or to be creative, then don't force it.
I totally agree. And I feel like then if you try and start to procrastinate because you think this is such a crap thing and crap job, and you end up wasting more time. So 100%. It's just get people in who can help. At the start, yes, it was good to do bits of everything because it means now when I hire people I can't be shafted because I know what it takes to do the job. Yeah. But the organisation was still one thing that I was never good at and I've never tried to. And is what it is.
Yeah, 100% agree. Jordan, that was amazing. Thank you so much. We've got one last thing just before we finish the podcast. So obviously it's called Everybody Wants to Be Us. There's a tip jar here filled with notes that every guest puts in, and it's basically your tip for someone who wants to be like you. Right. So all you need to do, you don't need to say it to the camera, say it into the microphone. You just write it down, put it in there, and then eventually we're going to do something with it. Nice. But yeah, thank you very much.
Cool. Cheers. Thank you.